And let me tell you something that has not been talked about much. When you throw 15 million people off health care, when people can't get to a doctor when they should, people by the thousands are going to die from that horrendous decision. And that is why, together, we're going to roll it back.
That was Senator Bernie Sanders delivering a direct warning about the real-world impact of federal economic decisions. We live in a society where working-class families face rising costs for basic necessities, while a tiny group of ultra-wealthy individuals holds more wealth than entire sectors of the population. Today, we are breaking down a powerful 15-minute speech by Bernie Sanders. In it, he launches direct policy attacks on Donald Trump, the corporate lobby, and tech giants like Elon Musk. But are these claims grounded in economic data, or are they just highly effective political rhetoric? Let's take an objective look, starting with Sanders' opening call for political accountability.
First, it goes without saying that we must hold Donald Trump, his administration, and the entire Republican Party, who control the White House, control the Senate, control the U.S. House. We are going to hold them accountable for their disastrous policies. These policies have devastated working families in Texas, in Vermont, and all over the country. We are going to hold them to account. This administration, among many other actions, decided, if you can believe it, that it was appropriate to provide $1 trillion in tax breaks to the top 1%. And then to use that money to throw 15 million Americans off the health care they desperately need.
Sanders' opening argument centers on the concept of legislative accountability. In political science, this is the idea that representatives must face consequences for the outcomes of their bills. But the core of his policy critique begins when he transitions to the landmark 2017 corporate tax cuts and their relationship with public health care. Let's look at how he frames this trade-off.
And let me tell you something that has not been talked about much. When you throw 15 million people off health care, when people can't get to a doctor when they should, people by the thousands are going to die from that horrendous decision. And that is why, together, we're going to roll it back. But it's not just health care. Trump administration made the largest cuts to education in American history. As a result, 7 million Americans will be forced to pay $4,000 a year more on average on their student loan payments.
This is a major economic claim. When the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was passed in 2017, proponents argued it would boost corporate investment and create jobs. However, neutral analysts at the Congressional Budget Office highlighted the drop in federal revenue, which critics like Sanders point to as a direct driver for cuts in public welfare programs like Medicaid. From healthcare, Sanders pivots to another massive domestic struggle: the rising cost of public higher education.
We want our kids to have a great education, not to be forced to default on their loans. At a time when millions of kids are going hungry in America, Trump made the largest cuts to nutrition assistance in American history, literally taking food out of the mouths of hungry kids. You don't take food out of the mouths of hungry children and give tax breaks to billionaires. That's not what this country is about. Trump ripped up the union contracts of 1 million federal workers. He denied overtime pay to over 4 million workers. Trump abolished humanitarian aid that will lead to the deaths of millions of the poorest children on this planet by 2030.
The student debt crisis is one of the most pressing economic issues in modern American history, with national student loan debt currently sitting at roughly $1.7 trillion. Sanders argues that as state governments decrease funding for public universities, colleges are forced to raise tuition, shifting the financial burden directly onto the students. Next, Sanders contrasts this struggle with cuts to basic domestic welfare and food assistance programs.
And here in the U.S., Trump's domestic army, ICE, has acted brutally and illegally, tearing parents away from their kids and deporting millions of people who lived and worked in this country for decades. He has destroyed the lives of tens of thousands of people, and we're going to address that issue as well. And then after all of the cuts in health care, in education, in nutrition, he wants to spend another $500 billion on a bloated military budget. Those are not the priorities of the American people. Trump, during his campaign, promised no more endless wars. Remember that? And then started an unprovoked war against Iran in which thousands of innocent men, women, and children have been killed. Gas prices are now the highest in years, and taxpayers are going to have to spend hundreds of billions of dollars on this disastrous war.
Here, Sanders is making a moral argument, contrasting the reduction of domestic nutrition assistance with the continuation of corporate welfare. This contrast is a key part of his political strategy, designed to show a systemic imbalance in federal spending. Next, he shifts his focus to the labor market, analyzing the Trump administration's policies regarding labor unions and federal employees.
But it's not just Trump's terrible policies. The American people are tired of a president who is a pathological liar, who is an authoritarian personality who wants more and more power in his own hands, as he ignores the Constitution and the rule of law, who is a narcissist, who, if he had his way, would probably name every building in America after himself, who is a kleptocrat, corrupt kleptocrat, who accepts a $400 million luxury plane from Qatar and then makes deals with countries in the Middle East and around the world which benefit his family's wealth. My friends, it is important that we hold Trump and his administration accountable for the disastrous policies they have imposed on the American people.
While these critiques are standard for high-stakes political campaigns, the defense of labor unions and overtime pay has been a battleground in American politics for decades. Sanders views the protection of collective bargaining as the primary defense against corporate wage stagnation. This focus on corporate power leads directly into his most famous historical comparison, the return of the Gilded Age.
In recent primary elections, is that the American people do not want establishment status quo policies that tinker around the edges. The American people understand that this country is facing major crises, and they want bold proposals to improve their lives and the lives of their children. So let me do something this evening that is radical. You ready for a radical idea? All right. Are you really ready? I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you some stuff that you don't see in the corporate media and you hear very rarely in the halls of Congress. And that is that while the vast majority of the American people are struggling to put food on the table, pay for health care, pay for housing, pay for childcare and education.
To understand this Gilded Age comparison, we have to look back at the late 1800s, the era of industrial giants like John D. Rockefeller and Andrew Carnegie. While that period saw rapid industrialization, it was also characterized by extreme labor exploitation and massive wealth inequality. Many modern economists agree with Sanders that today's tech and finance sectors have created a similar dynamic, where a small group of executives wield unprecedented economic power. He then points to one specific modern figure as the face of this concentration.
The wealthiest people in our country have never ever had it so good. In fact, never before in American history have so few people held so much wealth and so much power.
No matter your political background, the statistics Sanders highlights raise serious questions about the structure of our modern economy. The concentration of wealth among a very small group of tech executives, alongside the rising influence of corporate lobbies and super PACs, continues to be a central debate in American democracy. But what is the correct path forward? Is aggressive corporate taxation the solution to fund domestic healthcare and education? Or would it stifle the innovation that drives economic growth? Let us know what you think in the comments below. If you found this breakdown and historical analysis helpful, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in our next video.